I'd like to call the Quarry Monitoring Committee meeting together for Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. Would you please take the roll?
Alderman Barber.
Here.
Member Swenson.
Here.
Alderman Hassan.
Here.
Member Tenhaken.
Here.
Member Pins.
Here.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance, going on to item 2, to look at the minutes? Any corrections or adjustments to the minutes? Oh, I should have done the Pledge of Allegiance. That's right. Pledge of Allegiance. How's that? We'll go in order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if everyone's had a chance to read over the minutes from the regular meeting of January 24th, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Oh, go ahead. A motion to approve. I would second.
Having a motion made and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? It approved. The minutes are approved unanimously by a vote of 5-0. Okay, now we move to item 3, which is the citizen comment period. Any citizens wishing to speak or share any input, please stand up, address the mic, give your name and address, and try to limit yourself to reasonable.
Thank you. Dana Gint, 9011 West Hawthorne Lane. I'm here to discuss, I would really appreciate if the Quarry Committee would recommend having a monitoring committee set up for the Rock Sports Complex, because clearly having the developer maintain, monitor, and report on the monitors that have been broken for over a year is unacceptable when that is what is supposed to be protecting the neighbors. The idea of a monitoring committee for the Rock Sports Complex was actually brought up on June 7th, 2018. I'll just quote a couple paragraphs from that. If there are complaints, we're going to set up a monitoring committee. Then we can get a monitoring, and we will have an arbitrary or third party that will both agree to do it. Why don't we just agree that there's an independent third party that'll do it at the developer's expense? So if he does violate the parameters that we set up, and you have to disprove it because you're going to have an independent third party check you out. It goes on to say the engineer Glenn Murrow was talking about the number of monitors, and he said he asked why he thought there was 2 or 3 dozen when there's only 3. He said, but it seems like 3 is not very much for a property this size. You know, maybe 3 per side would be a better situation. Oh, and the developer stated, okay, Glenn Murrow went on to, but I think having more of them would help show that there is something like a Harley or something going by, that's what caused the disturbance. The developer said, possibly, yes, it is just we can add, the system, we can just add more if it's necessary. So clearly there's things that can be done regarding the monitoring of the noise at this facility. There are over 1,000 complaints filed regarding the rock noise extending for miles past the development. Also during this June 2018 meeting, they talked about having a committee, like a special event committee, in combination with the Quarry, with a sound monitoring committee, which is also, so that's from 2018. This has also been brought up over the last 6 months with the licensing committee to have some sort of special event monitoring committee to review all the special event applications, because obviously when there's over 100 events at one location, there should be a specific review of all these events, not just rubber stamping it as the planning department does presently, that they approve everything and say, oh, it's an occasional event, so it's exempt from all noise ordinances. It just is extraordinary to me. So if there's something that we can do, I'd really appreciate if this committee would put some sort of recommendation to the Common Council to set up a special monitoring committee for the Rock Sports Complex in combination with a special event committee because obviously the report should be created regarding noise complaints and what the measurements are. And then the special events that are being reviewed across the city for all events should relate to the disturbances of the noise. Thank you for your time.
Okay, just a comment back on this. Our monitoring committee would probably be something very parallel to what you're seeking. Whether it's within our charter to do that, I will look at it at our next meeting as an agenda item to see whether or not we right now are limited to the PDDs that are in existence for the quarry as to what we can do and recommend. But we take a look at it and then just have that as a discussion for the next meeting as a line item. So it has nothing to do really with the quarry effort, but I'll see if there's something, because like I said, it would parallel our activities, very similar. And that's kind of what the model is I think you'd be talking about. So, okay, moving on to item 4, business. Action may be taken on any item.
Excuse me, Alderman Barber, to close the public hearing notice.
Oh, yes, okay. I'll close the citizen comment period and move on to item 4. Okay, business. Welcome to Alderman Hassan. Alderman Hassan was elected during the last election, and Mr. Nelson, or Mayor Nelson, assigned him to our committee. Not necessarily assigned him, but he's on our committee, and we are welcoming you to our meeting.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And just for those that we all have a representative that we assign, the mayor has a representative, Alderman Hassan has a representative, I have a representative, and that makes up the body of this group. So, Mr. Ping is.
Yep, I was assigned by Kristen Wilhelm.
Mayors. And next meeting, and just as a little tip, I'm nominating Dina to move into my appointment. Dina now serves as an ad hoc member. With the next council meeting, it'll be approved by the council, and so Dina will now be a voting member, full member, rather than the ad hoc member, which is still going to be a position, so we can get citizen input and citizen advisories. Another citizen can be part of the process. So we didn't have to change any of the ordinances that set us up or anything. We had an ad hoc member for that input. So by next meeting, I think we'll have a new announcement.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the honor of being nominated for that. So.
Okay. Selection of the chair and vice chair. Item B. I serve right now as the chair, and I think Kristen Wilhelm was the vice chair. Is that correct? Does anybody recall that?
At this moment, it's Dina. Dina Swanson.
Oh, Dina was the vice chair. Okay. So every year we have to select a new chair and a vice chair. Are there any thoughts from the committee?
I'd like to keep it the way it is.
What?
Keep it the way it is.
I have no problem with that.
Good.
I think I'll be here another year. Anyway, if someone would make a motion to that effect, then if it's okay,
I move to nominate you as the chair.
and the vice chair.
And Dina as the vice chair.
Okay, so that would be Alderman Barber as the chair and Dina as the vice chair.
I would second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, then there's a review and discussion of the matters pertaining to citizen complaint. Oh no, let's go to C. Quarterly presentation of the Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. first quarter calendar year 2023, February, January, and March. This is a data presentation from our outside vendor. That is the third party that monitors the activity.
Correct. So in the
So in the packet, there should be the first quarter report, and I'll go over the highlights of that. Typical format that we've had, and I did add a couple of requests that you had from the last meeting regarding a little bit more information about the actual complaint event. So we'll get to that as we get a little bit further in the report. During the first quarter, January through the end of March, there were a total of 10 blast events, and we did not do any unannounced or announced inspections of the quarry. We did start those again in April of this year. It's kind of our typical schedule that we don't go out there during the first quarter. And of the 10 blasts, 8 of them were confirmed by the monitors that we have co-located with 2 of the 4 quarry monitors. All of the blasts were within the PDD for the maximum vibration, and all of them were within the PDD for the decibel level. There was 2 complaints lodged this quarter, and both of them were regarding the same blast event. And the comments on that, both of them were for a blast. And you can see that the PVV, the vibration, and the air overpressure decibel readings were well below the permitted levels. Comments were blast shook the house with an accompanying crack sound, and the quarry blast shook entire house. Both of those were from the southeast of the quarry meter, which was the closest meter to the blast area. Both of the complaints were south of Drexel Avenue, which is typical for when the blasts are in that portion of the quarry. And the blast was in the southern area of the quarry at the time. And if we go to the actual map, you can see most of the blasts during the first quarter were in the northern part of the quarry, but there were a few in the southern portion. And one of the blasts in the southern portion resulted in complaints that were south of the quarry.
You know what, is it the red dot there at the bottom?
The green dot is the one that resulted in the complaints.
Okay.
And the green triangles down here are relative locations. We don't do
Oh, okay. I see it.
quite exact, just so you can kind of see the general location of where the complaints were coming from. Per discussions at previous meetings, more detailed information is available regarding the complaint address, but we don't include that in the report.
Yeah, the area south seems to get most of the complaints for vibration, and
Most of them, especially from the ones from the southern portion of the quarry.
Yeah.
Occasionally, we'll have a complaint to the east of the quarry. For some of them, it's very limited for the northern portion or the central portion of the quarry. But I would say the vast majority of the complaints are for blasts in the south, and the complaints will be south of Drexel.
I was curious to see for this reporting period if there would be any complaints coming from the new Viridian development going on 50th.
It hasn't happened yet, but I haven't reviewed the data for April onward yet, so
They start moving in
we'll
more
be
now.
watching as more and more residents go into those addresses.
What is that green dot?
The green dot is the blast that resulted in the 2 complaints.
Okay, that's
So,
where it
yep.
occurred.
And since we only had one complaint, one blast event that resulted in complaints, there's only one colored dot. The pink dots had no complaints. If there were other blasts that had multiple had complaints, we would have multiple different color dots and coordinate that with the triangles, so we can see any trends.
So all those to the north had no complaints?
None of them, and the 3 here in the south did not have complaints either.
Okay.
By dumb luck, I bought a house on the east side and never had a problem with it.
Why didn't you tell me?
I should have moved south. We trade houses.
No, that's fine. Okay, is there any questions or discussions? I know Yusuf is new to this. Maybe just to go over it again.
I can tell you a little bit about what we do. So generally during late spring through early fall, we also do unannounced and announced inspections when we're going out and checking primarily for dust and debris on the roads. At least once a year we go inside of the quarry and do an inspection inside there as well. verify that they're having their air monitoring records in place, and just to see active blast areas, how that's changing over the years. We provide photos and videos to Regulo through a secured website to show what the conditions are. We also show in the videos trucks exiting both to the east and west onto Rawson Avenue. We're checking to make sure that the street sweepers are out there, that sort of thing. I guess historically there were more issues with dust complaints, but I've been involved with this now 4 years, and it's very rare to have a dust complaint. The other thing is that we look at the blast data from the 4 monitors that Payne and Dolan has out there, and we have monitors co-located at 2 of the locations to further confirm their data. And then we provide a quarterly report now, summarizing previous quarter. We're typically 1 to 2 months in arrears. The next meeting after the close of the quarter, I come and do the presentation. And we've been tweaking the report over the past couple of years, and we've added more information about the actual complaints for specific blast events, so we can understand a little bit about what the complaints are, and to see any trends that are developing over time.
If you could renew my memory, how many monitors for vibration and sound in total are there between Payne and Dolan and
Payne and Dolan has 4, and each of those does
Vibration.
sound and vibration.
Okay.
And then we have 2. So there's a total of 6 meters at 4 locations.
Gotcha.
We both do sound and vibration.
And 2 of them are simultaneous, so that we're
They're
cross-checking.
co-located, so we can verify that. They're slightly different styles of meters, so the numbers will be a little different, but they're usually within a reasonable agreement to each other.
What is done about the dust?
If we do see dust problems, we notify Regulo typically within 24 hours of the inspection, and then Regulo can reach out to Payne and Dolan.
And then how do they manipulate the amount of dust to produce?
That'd probably be a better question to be answered by the quarry.
Spray
I
water.
think
We just monitor to see if there's an issue, and we do periodic unannounced, so we're just doing spot checks.
I think what happens is the trucks leave the quarry. That's the dust that we're talking about on the
It might be on their
roadways.
wheels.
It's
but
not,
they've
it's
got-
not coming from the blast per se, but it's as trucks go up and down and are traversing. If you've ever shopped at Sendex during the day, you'll probably see the Payne and Dolan sweeper out there. Because it's out there, 2 or 3 times a day when you have a lot of trucking activity.
Yeah, I'd say it's,
To take the dust off the road so that it's being mitigated continuously.
Okay.
even with our random, we do a variety, we try and change up the days of the week, morning versus afternoon, and I'd still say 75% of the time, we generally see a street sweeper out there.
I seen the sweeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen it on Rawson, yeah.
And I know part of the design of their haul road also allows a lot of material to get knocked off the truck tires before it leaves the site as well.
Okay.
And do you do both sides of Rawson? Or do you do just north or south or north and south?
Sides. Yeah, we'll do both sides.
You turn around and come back and get that way?
Yeah, so he will do both sides of Rawson, and then down usually to 51st Street and up to 68 or 76. But both sides of Rawson. And then we'll go a little further as needed.
I mean, I always wave at the,
His name is Marcus.
Him
He's a
into
real
your
friendly
neighborhood
guy.
to do your street.
yeah, I'm just trying to get him over to my house.
Probably would do that.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. When will you be making, what month is the next presentation?
So-
3 months from now?
The next quarter ends at the end of June, so we could do
Or July?
a July or August, depending on the meeting schedule.
May. So we got June, July, probably August. Regular, would that make sense for the next report? Are we scheduled for August for our next quarterly meeting, or next meeting for this? So the next report would then show up at the August meeting. Item D is a review and discussion of matters pertaining to the citizen complaints, blasting data from Payne and Dolan, and the Stantec City Consult. So is the
Yeah.
Payne and
Ju-
Dolan data in the packet as well?
Just an addition, so the presentation by Kristen covered the first quarter from January to March. So I normally include in the packet any blasting data after the quarter. So for the month of April, we received 2 complaints, one on April 10 and one on April 25. And the meter with the highest reading was the meter on 51st Street today, and the readings for the April 10 was 0.17 and 0.14 for the April 25. This is in compliance with the limits of the PDD for ground vibration and also for the air blast.
They're below the standard.
Correct.
And is that the same 2 complaints that you identified?
No, because I'm reporting April.
Oh,
So,
April.
Yeah,
April. Okay, so did the same 2 that you had in the first quarter are the same? You said 2 in the first quarter.
There are 2 different addresses that reported,
Right.
yes, for that one blast. I haven't compared that to the addresses that complained for. I will, for the next report, I'll comment if there are ones that have recently complained. But
Just so we get some kind of an idea of the,
Just at the end of each quarter, then I said all the complaint data to Kristen.
okay. So they could have been the same 2 that you agreed upon.
No,
but
but
these are 2 different ones now in April.
Right, because we're talking about different periods.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because April, usually, Pandolans comes a little bit quicker than the quarterly report. So we get monthly reports.
Correct. Yeah, we have received monthly report from Payne and Dole.
Okay. So is there any discussion, or what is, could you just give me the language that was in your 2, what were the comments again?
it was regarding, the general comment was that the house shook.
The house shook for both of them. It was,
Yes.
okay.
And these were both informal complaints that they didn't push any further action.
They were listed as formal complaints, but did not request additional follow-up.
Okay.
And these have names and addresses attached to them for the most part?
They did,
Okay, not that
and
we-
that is available upon request,
Well, I
but it's
don't
not
think we
included
need
in
to
the report.
I don't think we need to know that, but I'm just wondering if they did identify themselves.
Yes, and next quarter, if those same addresses are complaining again, or if they've complained multiple times during a quarter, that's noted in the report.
Which leads us all into, unless there's any other questions on D, any other comments or discussion?
No, I'm good.
Leads us into E, which is one of our annual functions here in the Quarry Committee, is setting up the contract for you for next year. We are now in our budget cycle, so that's going to be coming up again. What I'm liking the committee to do, and I just wanted to bring it up here early because we are in the budget cycle, is to discuss what the current contract is and ask you to look it over and see if there's anything new that you can see or anything that would help you do your job as committee members here, any kind of additional information that we could think about requesting. And so it would be up to us to define the terms of next year's contract. And then that would go to council for approval. So that's one of our functions, and I asked Regulo to include it in the packet, what our current contract is, so that you can review it and read it for any future discussion, which would probably be now at our August meeting, which is still within the budget cycle. So I just wanted to introduce it earlier enough now so that it's available to you and you've had a chance to review it. And when August comes, we'll probably finalize it at that meeting, I'm assuming. So have you had a chance to look at it, or is there any questions that pop out?
Is that the attachment 4 at the back?
Correct.
Yeah, that's the terms of it.
Okay, I hadn't not read it completely.
Okay.
If
I
I
can
have
give a
trouble
couple
sleeping tonight.
high-level highlights of that if you would like. Our budget has stayed essentially the same, I think, for the past 4 years. No increase in the fee amount. We've just changed what's been included in the fee. So some of the items in there include the rental of the meters. That's a flat fee on there for the 2 meters that we provide. We have the preparation of the quarterly report and me coming to the meetings. We have the periodic inspections of the site, and then the documentation that goes to Regulo for that. And one of the other items we have is, I think it's listed as an exceptional blast report. And that we added a few years, 2 or 3 years ago now, especially in 2020, all of a sudden when people are working from home more and the blasts tend to happen during the day, we had the opportunity to do a quick review of the data and pinpoint the locations of where the complaints were coming from for a specific blast event. We did 3 of them the first year, I think 1 the following year, and we didn't do any last year, I think. So we changed it to just a single line item on that to have it available.
And what we did is, what we've kind of been working on or improving as we go, is the complaint monitoring and reporting out to us.
Correct.
That-
So we've
that
been
helps.
we've been modifying the quarterly report. We've done the quarterly report now. This will be the 3rd year of the quarterly versus an annual report. So this way you're staying on top of the information a little bit more.
Which helps us a lot, getting that data as to what people are actually saying and how frequently they're saying it and where it's coming from. It's a good part of this whole thing, so.
And we updated the map to have the color coding with the complaint locations with the blast too.
I never understand the
Yeah.
color code. Every meeting I'll ask.
Yeah, that's fine.
The exceptional blast complaint evaluation, is that true? Okay. The exceptional blast complaint evaluation, is that triggered by complaints strictly, or when Panadola's over the blast limit for
In the event that we receive multiple complaints for a single blast, then the city requests the consultant to prepare the sectional blast report.
Okay.
I think the last one was in 2021 because we didn't use it last year.
Yeah.
And like, I think one of the first ones, we had like 12 or some complaints from one event. So It was not the norm is, no complaints up to maybe 2 or 3 at most.
Yeah, and since I've been on this committee, I think there have only been a couple of events when Panadona was slightly over the blast limit, where it was a little bit more vibration or...
It was for the sound.
Yeah.
The vibration, they've always been under that. A couple of them, they've been right
Oh, the
at or
sound.
just above on the sound.
Yeah. So it's not like it used to be back in the 90s.
No, or even a couple,
80s.
even 4 years ago.
Right. And
3 years ago.
per the PDD, they need to comply with those limits for 85% of the blasts. So even having one of those over for the year, they're still in compliance with the plan.
Providing it's 85.
Yeah.
Around there. Okay, the item F then, so we'll carry that item over to the next meeting with the final preparation for the budget that we will be asking for. Item F is the 2022 annual reclamation report. The status of that
Thank you.
reclamation.
Yeah, this is the annual reclamation report that indicates how many acres are under active mining and how many acres has been reclaimed. So the operator submit this report every year to the city, typically in January, and then the city transmits this information to the Department of Natural Resources by March of each year. So this is the same acreage that has been in the previous years, no changes. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. This is an annual item.
I just have a quick question. The area that's green that has been reclaimed. Does that indicate that this section of the quarry land has been brought back to how it's going to be left once the quarry stops operations? So this is back at that level?
Yeah, that is correct, but if you want to provide additional information, Glenn?
Regarding the reclaimed area, so pretty much that area is set as... There you go.
So, yeah, I had to just take a look at what the map was. So the area that's reclaimed, that used to be the processing area. All the rock used to be hauled from the bottom of the quarry, hauled across the river, and then stockpiled, and all the crushing and screening, stockpiling, load out all occurred in that field. As part of the PDD approvals, we're required to move all those operations down to the floor of the quarry. And I think around 2000, I think the area had to be reclaimed then. So that area, won't be going back in again, because the PDDs also limit the lateral extent of
Okay,
where
so
we can go.
that area is to the west of the Oak Leaf Trail that runs along the river.
Correct.
There. Oh, so okay. I didn't even realize that there was that happening over there. Cool.
Yeah, so just for those that are here, this whole area here.
Yeah.
So, and as part of that, that was actually a non-conforming use area, so we could actually mine that prior to the PDDs. So as part of the PDD approvals, we gave up the right to be able to mine that for the expansion of areas on the east side of the river there.
In fact, I think a farmer is leasing some of those fields to plant crops.
Yep. They're still leased out. That one I think is just green space, but the rest of them that weren't using that type of operation are.
Okay.
So.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Just to recap, there is an extensive reclamation plan in place that we review every 5 years. We think we set it up to be that way. We've recently reviewed it, and it's probably going to be coming up in maybe the next couple of years again for us to start. But it lays out everything the quarry will have to do when they cease operations. And that's probably an example of what we will be seeing eventually when the quarry ceases operations and it becomes a swimming beach. Maybe. But that area will be all reclaimed, such as you see, as Clint just pointed out. And there's an extensive plan in place to put that in there with soil types and types of grasses. I mean, it's
native planting.
It's extensive, and I don't plan on seeing it.
It's going to be a while before you get there.
Because naturally you have to wait for it to fill up, and that's going to take a lot of time once you cease operations to form this new area. So then after that, it would just look like that in general. So
yeah, and I think there was a mention of a trail around the
possible
lake. Yeah,
but there is a plan in place to reclaim it once operations cease, and we next probably, at least in a couple of years from now, we'll have to relook at when that was. What did we say? 5 years?
If I'm not mistaken, I think the reclamation plan was adopted in 2021, so it will be around 2026.
Okay,
Sorry.
but that's something that we do review, and we would upgrade it based upon the technology at the time, and then the quarry agrees with it, and we submit that as the new plan to carry us forward when that does happen. So there is a plan in place, and it's extensive.
Well, when that time comes, if I'm still alive, I'd like to hire on as a scraper operator because you have a lot of berm to knock down.
Okay, the next meeting schedule then, item 5 is, we said, August. And would that be at the convenience of the chair then, or is there a specific date we want to set up?
Up to you, as long as it doesn't conflict with the common council meeting.
Okay, so we'll set the date and let everybody know what that date might be in advance of the meeting itself. So, okay, no other meetings need to be scheduled. Again, it came up prior to the meeting where if anybody would like to take a tour of it, Clint, Yusuf mentioned it to Clint, that he would like to take a tour. So anybody that would like to take a tour, we could do as a group, or else maybe just two or three of us, okay, can have it. I know I did it with two, I think, or three was whatever. But we can't take a bus down in there. But you can set up an appointment, and Clint will work with you on doing that, so.
I've contacted Clint to just be able to come and view a quarry blasting event in the quarry, and he's going to work on their blasting schedule to see what that comes up, that maybe one or two of us could go down and witness the blast event from inside the quarry.
It's very interesting to see, and it's something everybody on our committee should take that tour, because then you know what you're talking about in terms of the areas and where we now have the asphalt creation, which is up on top and moved down into the pit itself. So you'll see what that all looks like and where it's operational within that big hall. So I think that's another thing that we could just, anybody that's interested could just contact Clint and get that done at any point. I mean, it's not like it's real special, but it's a special thing, but we don't have to set up.
Thank you. Lauren Miller, new planning manager. I do want to mention that we can't perform at this tour. So another option might be to do a public notice for it and do a tour as a group. That way we're also not inconvenience everybody else for extra tours. So please let us know if that's what you'd like to explore, and then we can set that up for you.
Clint would have a problem doing that with the larger group. It's more practical to do it with just a couple individuals at a time. So it's just kind of the way it's evolved as being a good thing to, then they can spend the time and talk to everybody about it and point out the highlights. And I liked it as a more individual tour than rather than a group tour. So that would be my preference if I was to do it again. But if you're interested, please contact Clint, or we can get that going.
I could also email people on the committee if once Clint comes up with a date that maybe I could come down, if anybody wanted to come and join, meet me at the quarry.
Well, that would be good, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Make two.
So as part of the quarry monitoring, you get first-hand knowledge of what's actually on the site, and we can understand it all better. So it helped me a lot.
Yep.
Okay, any other business?
Can I just ask one final question?
Sure.
Okay. Kristen, if I could ask you one final question as far as best practices go, considering the budgeting season that's coming up. So if there are other quarries, are we, I guess the line items that you have in place, are those considered best practices, or are there certain areas of quarry monitoring that we're not doing?
I can look into that and get back to you at the next meeting.
Okay. Just curious if we're covering
I'll
off
see
on
if
it.
there's anything else that any of my other colleagues have heard, and then I'll check on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
I'll second it.
Beat you.
There's been a motion and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is adjourned with 5 ayes, no noes.
Thank you.